There are exactly two animals on Earth known to successfully hunt a giant squid: a sperm whale weighing up to 90,000 pounds, or an even larger giant squid. That's the rule. That's been the rule for as long as we've studied these animals. Recent research has identified a third hunter, and it isn't another whale. It isn't some undiscovered deep sea monster. It's a fish with no scales, no armor, and no weapon beyond a flat bony spike on its face. The swordfish is successfully hunting one of the most dangerous predators in the entire ocean. And once you understand exactly how, you'll realize this matchup makes far more sense than it should and reveals something genuinely unsettling about what happens when a surface predator invades the deep. Before this fight makes any sense, you need to understand that a giant squid is not a harmless, oversized version of something you'd see in a tide pool. These animals reach over 40 feet long and weigh hundreds of pounds. And instead of normal smooth suction cups, every single sucker lining their two primary feeding tentacles is rimmed with serrated rings made of chitin, the same rigid material that forms an insect's exoskeleton. When a giant squid grabs something, it isn't simple suction. It's physically tearing into flesh on contact. Once secured, it pulls its catch toward a solid beak capable of slicing prey cleanly in half. Now look at the swordfish. No armor, no scales at all, completely smooth skin, no claws, no crushing bite, no tentacles, just a fast, streamlined body with a flat, bony extension on its face. On pure physical specifications, the squid should win every single time. It has the reach advantage, the weight advantage, the grappling advantage, and the only real weapon in the matchup. But here's the part that should be impossible before we even get to weapons. These two animals shouldn't be able to encounter each other at all. The ocean operates in strict vertical zones, and animals adapted to one zone essentially never cross into another. Swordfish live in the epipelagic zone, the top 650 feet of ocean, warm, sunlit, saturated with oxygen. This is where the overwhelming majority of ocean life exists. Giant squid live almost entirely in the midnight zone, starting around 3,300 feet and extending down to roughly 13,000 feet. A giant squid essentially never approaches the surface, except in rare cases where it's already dying. Which means if this fight is going to happen at all, the squid can't come up. The swordfish has to go down, and that should be a death sentence. A surface fish dropping into water near freezing temperatures, under crushing pressure, should die just as fast as an unprotected human dropped onto the surface of Mars. Swordfish do it anyway, every single night. When the sun sets, swordfish perform what's called extreme vertical migration. They point straight down and dive, and their bodies can withstand pressure at depths greater than a killer whale can reach. But raw pressure tolerance isn't the real problem. Take any normal surface fish and drop it into water barely above freezing, and it dies almost immediately. Fish are cold-blooded. Their internal body temperature is entirely controlled by the surrounding water. Freezing water means freezing blood, and freezing blood shuts down every system in the body. Swordfish have something built directly into their skull that prevents exactly this. Positioned right next to their eyes and brain is a specialized tissue, essentially a modified eye muscle whose only function is to twitch continuously, generating pure heat as a byproduct. This tissue warms the blood flowing specifically into the swordfish's eyes and brain, keeping those two critical organs significantly warmer than the surrounding freezing water. It's a built-in heater for exactly the two organs that matter most for hunting in total darkness. The swordfish can actually see down here, but seeing a 40-foot deep-sea predator and killing one are two very different problems. Most people assume a swordfish hunts exactly the way it looks like it should: swim fast, stab things, repeat. Against a giant squid, stabbing is close to suicide. If a swordfish swims directly into a 40-foot squid and drives its bill into the center of its body, the swordfish is now physically stuck, its only weapon lodged inside an animal with 8 arms, 2 additional feeding tentacles, and a beak fully capable of eating it. Handing yourself directly to a deep-sea predator is not a winning strategy, so they don't stab. A swordfish's bill is completely flat, functioning more like a broadsword than a spear. The actual attack involves swimming directly at the target at extreme speed and violently thrashing its head side to side right before impact, essentially a horizontal slashing strike rather than a forward thrust. This wouldn't work against something with bone, muscle, or a hard shell. It works specifically because a squid has none of those things. Squid have no skeleton whatsoever, pure soft tissue, with their entire central nervous system concentrated in the soft mantle at the center of the body. A well-placed slash can either cut the squid directly or stun it badly enough to cause near total paralysis. Speed and precision are everything here. The swordfish needs to disable the squid in a single pass. So how does this actually play out underwater? The giant squid's entire strategy depends on stealth. As an ambush predator in total darkness, it remains essentially motionless for extended periods, waiting for prey to drift within range before reacting in a fraction of a second, tentacles firing out, prey pulled in immediately. It needs the element of surprise to function at all. The swordfish is built for the opposite approach entirely. Closely related to marlin, the fastest fish in the ocean, swordfish are engineered purely for speed. Water is nearly 800 times denser than air, so a swordfish moving at 50 miles per hour underwater is generating force that's difficult to comprehend. If a swordfish locates a squid and lands a clean strike, the fight is essentially over before it begins. The squid has zero physical defense against a fast-moving, slashing attack. No scales, no shell, no armor of any kind, just dense, vulnerable tissue. So if the initial strike connects and the squid can't fight back immediately, does it have any options left? Say, the giant squid spots the swordfish at the last possible second, dodges the slash, and tries to flee. This actually makes things significantly worse for the squid. Deep-sea animals share one critical weakness: almost no stamina. In the midnight zone, food can be scarce for weeks or even months at a time, so these animals evolve extremely slow metabolisms specifically to conserve energy. A giant squid moves through jet propulsion, forcing water through its mantle and out through a siphon for short bursts of speed. This works for brief escapes, but is wildly inefficient for sustained swimming. A giant squid attempting to sprint floods its own muscles with lactic acid and completely exhausts itself within minutes. The swordfish just arrived from the oxygen-saturated surface and has functionally unlimited stamina by comparison. If the squid tries to outrun it, the swordfish closes the distance again with ease. What about the squid's famous defense ink? Giant squid are still capable of producing ink clouds like any other squid. But think about what that actually accomplishes: 3,300 feet underwater in total darkness. Releasing black ink into an already pitch-black ocean provides essentially zero visual concealment. It's the equivalent of trying to blind someone who's already blind. If the swordfish holds every advantage, speed, stamina, vision, and a weapon that bypasses the squid's entire defense system, why hasn't this wiped out the giant squid population entirely? Giant squid don't spawn into the ocean already 40 feet long. Hunting a fully grown adult every single night would be enormously dangerous and energetically wasteful, even for a swordfish that's exactly the matchup sperm whales are built to handle instead. Swordfish primarily target juveniles. At 3 to 5 feet long, a young giant squid lacks the mass and strength to mount any real resistance. This isn't really a fair fight at that size. It's closer to systematic predation on the most vulnerable members of the population. But it's not risk-free. If a swordfish dives down and encounters a fully grown adult instead of a juvenile, the entire dynamic flips. The swordfish's hit-and-run strategy depends entirely on landing the slash and immediately retreating out of range before the squid can respond. A single mistake, a misjudged strike, a moment of lost momentum hands the fight directly to the squid. At that point, the squid can finally use its tentacles to grab, pull, and bite, exactly the way it handles sperm whales. The difference is, a swordfish is roughly 1/100th the size of a sperm whale, making it genuinely vulnerable to a squid that gets the chance to fight back. The instant a swordfish loses its speed advantage, it stops being the hunter. So why hasn't the giant squid evolved better defenses against this threat? The deep sea is an extraordinarily stable environment. Temperature barely fluctuates, pressure never changes. The pace of evolutionary change down here is correspondingly slow. The giant squid has functioned essentially the same way for millions of years, because that strategy worked reliably against everything that historically shared its environment. The ocean surface is the opposite. Predators like orcas and tiger sharks force constant rapid evolutionary pressure. The swordfish is a direct product of that fast-paced surface evolution. Nothing this fast exists naturally in the deep ocean. When an animal built by that intense surface competition dives directly into an environment that's barely changed in millions of years, the deep sea has no answer prepared for it. The giant squid isn't simply losing this matchup. It's trapped in an evolutionary lag, completely outpaced by a predator built somewhere else entirely, and never designed to be one. It's tempting to look at a 40-foot tentacled predator and assume it automatically sits at the very top of the ocean's food chain. In its own zone, against its own neighbors, it largely does. But step outside that zone and everything changes. The giant squid isn't the top of the entire ocean. It's just the most dominant thing in a world that never had to prepare for an invader from somewhere else.